Hello, 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 and welcome into episode whatever number this is of At the Helm with your host, Justin Helms. And today I'm filming my episode kind of backwards. Like usually I do my what did I learn, my reactions to the week before, like maybe some hot takes or something that I have. And then after that, you guys know, I split the episode and then I do rankings and my picks. But today I'm going to do rankings and picks, and that's solely because the playoff committee is about to do their rankings. I'm recording this at Tuesday, 6:45 p.m. The playoff committee comes on at 7 p.m. I want to at least have this episode out on the same day so people can compare, because I have my ideas. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you my ranking, and I have my own ideas of what I think the committee is going to do with their ranking. I think theirs is going to be a little bit different, but and I'll talk about that. And then after that, I'm going to be doing my game picks for championship weekend. Some very important games. At least 3 games are going to be important, in my opinion, at least. And yeah, so let's get right into it. First, start off, we're going to do my rankings. And I'm going to give you my rankings, and then I'm going to give you what I think the committee is going to do. Number 1, UGA. They've been the best team so far. It's hard to see most dominant. Like I was on Jonathan's podcast, Sports Den, and he made a good point. Like there's no such thing as a top dog anymore. There's a lot of guys that are part of the top dogs. Georgia is one of the top dogs. Michigan is one of the top dogs. Ohio State is still one of the top dogs. So Alabama, teams like that, like they can all contend in any given year, even if this year isn't their year. It's not like it's automatically we know who's winning. But yeah, UGA, they seem to play up and down to their competition a little bit. I think that's more just the fact that Kirby knows when and when not to hype his team up, especially for big games like Tennessee. They come out and they play hard and they play big and everything. Oregon, they come out and they play hard, play big. If they were able to play another team that was like that level, they would come out and they'd probably play a lot better than what we saw in that Kentucky and that Georgia Tech game. And the Georgia Tech game started off slow, but they handled their business. So it's no one else would really fit in that spot right now. So yeah, number 1 is Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. That win is huge, and it's tempting enough to maybe even want to put Michigan at number 1 due to it. But I think that win that Michigan had says more about Ohio State than it does about Michigan. We've seen Michigan struggle in a lot of games this year. They almost lost to Illinois just like last week. So it's hard for me to just go out and be like, oh, yeah, Michigan whooping Ohio State means that they're the most dominant team in the country. I don't know that. Ohio State has played a lot of cupcakes. They haven't really played anybody. And then on top of that, Michigan went out and they've put up some very close games too. So it's hard for me to just justify putting Michigan at number 1 over Georgia right now. Third, actually, I will say this is a tough one. I had struggled with this, but third, I will give it to TCU. I'll give it to them. They've come out. They've looked good this year. Max Duggan is now like second in Heisman race, which is absolutely insane to me. But it's hard to deny when your team is undefeated. I've already said my opinion on this. They've won a lot of games that were 10 points, 7 points, 3 points. They won by 1 point to Baylor just like the week before last. So last week they played, what was it? Some team they beat up on bad for rivalry week. I can't even remember. But just the week before, they had almost lost to Baylor. So right now, TCU is number 3, in my opinion, and I'll get, I guess, more into this when I do my picks. In my opinion, if TCU loses this weekend, they should not be in that playoff. They're not good enough. They will lose to any team they play, and I think they will lose pretty soundly to any team they play as well. Georgia, Michigan, or anybody who sneaks in at number 4. Like, I just don't see TCU winning that. Like, their team is not as good as what people think it is. And I think they have a really good chance of losing this weekend, which I will talk about later. Number 4. And I'm gonna do 6. I'm gonna do 6 this time. Number 4. I don't care what people say. it's got to be Ohio State. Like USC lost to a worse team in Utah, even though their loss wasn't as bad. I'm pretty sure their loss was still one score. Ohio State's was 22 points, so it was 3 touchdowns. It's still the fact that USC plays a lot less competition, even in the Pac-12, than what Ohio State has in the Big Ten to an extent. They played Maryland, they played Notre Dame. USC also played Notre Dame, so that's the only thing. It's really tricky to look at that, honestly. Ohio State beat Notre Dame by a bigger margin, I believe. Let me make sure I got that right, actually, because USC beat Notre Dame by 11. Ohio State beat Notre Dame by 11. So the same thing, actually. I had to think about that because I thought they put 30 in that game. They didn't. I forgot they started really slow. So, yeah. Right now, Ohio State's number 4. The biggest thing that I have to say about that is because people keep talking about, does Ohio State slip behind Bama? Does Ohio State need to go in that number 6 spot? Because it seems like the consensus right now is that they're not going to be in the top 4. So, but that's crazy to me. Like, it's just a little bit premature. The only other team you can put there is USC, which I can respect. But in my opinion, if you put Ohio State and USC on a neutral field, I think Ohio State would take that game, honestly. USC would play very hard. I think they'd come out with a lot of offense. Their defense would slow C.J. Stroud down to an extent, but I don't think it would be enough with the talent they have at receiver, but Ohio State for USC to be able to handle. And number 5, and like I said, in the other things, 1 loss. They have 1 loss. I don't care. There's no actually, I'll get into that rant later. So let me number 5, I have USC. Basically all the same reasons I just said for Ohio State, only 1 loss. They looked pretty sound. They have some decent wins. Their loss to Utah was only by 1 point. They beat Washington State. They went out and beat Oregon State. And they beat UCLA. They beat Notre Dame. So they have some really good wins in there that, honestly, you could argue them at that number 4 spot. The only reason I don't put them there is because I don't think they would beat Ohio State today, even though they have played better competition and everything like that. I do my rankings a little bit different than the committee. I do use the eye test a lot and what I see could happen based off what I've watched on film from these two teams. And Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley look great. And that offense, Jordan Addison, Dye, everything. So, but I don't see them beating Ohio State today. So I have them at number 5. And once again, they have 1 loss. So they're not going behind my number 6 team, which is Bama. Bama is at number 6. Their 2 losses come at a total of only 4 points, which is the only argument you have putting them over a team like Ohio State. Their 1 loss was 22. But it's just, like I said on Jonathan's podcast on Sports Den, if you look at the NFL, and I know the NFL does it different because they have a set of rules that works every single time in terms of who gets seated where, in terms of if 2 teams are tied, they have tiebreakers, they have head-to-head, they have similar opponents, not similar, what's the word? Mutual opponents and stuff like that. So it's hard for college to do that because you play less games and then there's only 4 playoff spots, so it gets really, really tricky. And then these teams don't play each other. It's not 32 teams. There's 130 teams. So there's not many mutual opponents and stuff like that when it comes down to it. So, but the biggest thing they always look at in the NFL is record first. What is your record? Alabama's record is 10-2. You can't, like, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. Like, you can't win with that. Like, I don't know how you can convince anybody that a 2-loss team is supposed to be over a 1-loss team just because their margin of victory was less. I don't know. If Ohio State played Michigan again, would they get beat this bad by 21? I don't think so. I think they got caught off guard. They got punched in the mouth. They got out physical. They weren't fully prepared for it. But that's all I have for my rankings, at least. For the college football playoff ranking, this is what I think they're going to do, and that's about to come on in like 6 minutes. I think number 1 is going to be UGA. I think number 2 is going to be Michigan. Same reasons I said. Number 3 is going to be TCU because they're undefeated. Number 4, I think they put USC at number 4. They're not going to put Ohio State. And I kind of explained why USC could go there as well. They have honestly a better record in terms of strength in opponents and everything like that. But like I said, I don't think Ohio State is beating USC today. So USC number 4. Ohio State is not going to be number 5. I think the committee is going to put Bama at number 5 and Ohio State at number 6. I really do think they're going to do that. And I know they've been saying everything but and all these other reasons and this and that, Heather Dinch, Paul Feinbaum, Greg McElroy, all these other people. Even I just gave my reason why. But the fact of the matter is that Alabama only has 2 losses. Ohio State has 1. But Ohio State's loss was so much worse. In both of Alabama's games, it came down to the last second. Tennessee, LSU, 3 points, literally a field goal beat us, and then an extra, a 2-point conversion in overtime is what it took to beat Bama. Ohio State just got outright beat. And I know what they're going to say is Alabama doesn't have a signature win. They don't have this. They don't have that. Their strength of schedule hasn't been great this year. Who has Ohio State beat? Who has Ohio State beat? Ohio State, their best win right now is Notre Dame. Alabama's best win right now is probably Ole Miss. Notre Dame right now is currently if I can even get this up here. Notre Dame's 8-4. That's the same record as Ole Miss. I had to make sure I got that right before I spewed misinformation. But Ole Miss is the same exact record. So I don't know why that win looks so much better than Alabama's win versus Ole Miss. In my opinion, it's not really much different. Both the teams are all right. They're okay. They've lost games that they shouldn't have, and they've won games that they maybe shouldn't have as well. But it's just I don't know how you can sit there and look at the schedule of what Alabama's played this season. Even though it's not super strong, they have played in the SEC West, which is a lot harder than what the Ohio State is doing in the Big Ten East out there. So I have to right now, I think that the committee is going to put Alabama above Ohio State. Ohio State's going to come in at number 6. There's going to be a lot of angry Buckeye fans. I at this point, I don't think there's a chance Ohio State makes it, honestly, with what the committee is going to do. Because what they do this week absolutely sets them up for what happens next week. And if Ohio State is at that 6th spot, TCU can get blown out, USC can get blown out, and they're going to put Bama, and they're probably still going to keep TCU in there. I don't think TCU can't get blown out. If TCU loses, but USC gets beat, they're done. They're out of it. That's 2 losses. TCU gets beat, it depends on the margin of victory. If TCU gets beat bad, they're done. But if TCU gets beat, say what, like 10 points or something like that, they can handle that, and they'll probably be still put in there at maybe number 4. They might slide Bama to 3 at that point. So that's just my opinion on it. That's what I think that the committee's going to do. And then let me get into my game picks here for championship weekend. My phone don't want to be slow. It's always the ESPN app. I don't know what it is about this app. But it's like it literally doesn't know me when it comes time to record a podcast. Okay, here. First game, Utah versus USC. That's being played on Friday, 8 p.m. USC is a 3-point favorite. I am going to take USC. It was a 1-point game last time. Utah barely slid it out in the last second and stuff like that. And I think USC is a lot more prepared this time. They know kind of the type of things they're going to be seeing from Utah in terms of offense and defense, especially. They're going to have to lock in better on that side. And I think they're going to come in there and they're going to come in very hyped, excited, all that other stuff. And they're going to make sure that they take care of business in that game. If I'm going with the score prediction, I think USC handles that game by at least 10, honestly. I expect them to come back and make sure Utah knows that they're not better than USC, and it's no question who's top dog in the Pac-12. Number 2, Georgia versus LSU. I'm not even going to talk about this. Georgia. Number 3, Kansas State versus TCU. I'm going to take Kansas State. The last time they got beat, Kansas State had gotten their quarterback injured, Adrian Martinez, during that game. Do I think Kansas State would have won that game? I said no. I was on record saying no on multiple podcasts, so I can't sit here and say that I think they would have beat them. But will they beat them now if they have Adrian Martinez? I think that's a very strong possibility. I don't know if Adrian Martinez is playing, but the backup quarterback they have over there right now playing too is doing a really good job. Will Harold, forgetting his last name. It's Will something. Will Howard. But he's been doing a pretty good job. 13 touchdowns, only 2 picks. Adrian Martinez was at 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. So you can kind of say they're on the same track. They have around the same amount of yards and the same completion percentage. So it really wasn't a drop-off from Kansas State. And like I just said with Utah and USC, it is so hard to beat the same team twice in one season. It just does not happen very often. I don't think it's happening here. Kansas State lost that first one, 10-point game. They needed their offense. They weren't fully prepared for what they were supposed to be doing when Will Howard got in that game, or the type of offense they would be running that would be a little bit different than with Adrian Martinez. Now they're prepared for that. I don't think TCU is good enough. I've said this multiple times before. They lose this game, they most likely still make it to a playoff if it's under a 10-point game. So I'm hoping that Kansas State can really blow them out. But I do think it will stay pretty moderate. So I think it will be close. No more than a 10-point game. Kansas State, but TCU will still be in the playoff after this game. Next game, Michigan and Purdue. Michigan should go out there and put a beat down on them. I have no idea because Michigan has struggled in so many games that they weren't supposed to this season. So it's really hard for me to just go out and say that Michigan's going to whoop Purdue. I think they're going to beat them. They're going to beat them soundly and confidently if you watch the game. The score might not tell it as much, but I think they're going to do a pretty decent job and show that they do earn that number 2 spot and that their win against Ohio State wasn't just a fluke or whatever you want to call it, honestly. They're 16.5-point favorite. I think they cover that, honestly. Last one, Clemson and North Carolina. I'm actually going to go with North Carolina. Clemson struggled so much with the offense and the big explosive plays and field position that South Carolina was putting on them. Drake May, if you think Drake May can't make the same throws that Spencer Rattler was, and you've watched Drake May this season, you're absolutely out of your mind. I think he goes in there. I think he makes that Clemson defense look kind of dumb. Clemson is a 7.5-point favorite. Obviously, I don't think they cover. North Carolina by 3. Nah, North Carolina by 10. I'm not going to be nice. I have a hot take that you guys will hear whenever I record my next show, probably either tonight or tomorrow. Actually, probably Wednesday or Thursday. I'll record that show to make it a little bit closer to the games and everything like that. But that's everything for this show. I gave y'all my rankings. I told y'all what the committee's most likely going to do. And I gave y'all my picks. So let me know what y'all think. Of course, everything on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, YouTube, Life, figure it out. At the helm on everything, even TikTok. I'm going to start trying to post more TikToks again. So, deuce. I'll see y'all next time.